state of the silicon is fragmented.
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam. Joining me as always are Petty and Galax. Let us get to the weekly musings that we call news. Let's see. Petty, why don't you start us off this week?
I've been exceptionally tired this week. I think they've been starting work on putting in fiber internet lines in our area. And for the past couple days, I have woken up to crews putting holes in our driveway. So that's fun. That we also had a few holes put in our yard, so hopefully they patch up the damage they've done to our driveway, or we're going to be very pissed. When,
It might be time to get the compound bow.
It's in city limits, unfortunately. But yeah, it's one of those, if they're not going to fix it, we get to have the fun time of lawyering up. Because they did like actual damage to our property and didn't ask anybody here first. So it'd be the lawyering up time.
Fun.
And then my sister's boy cat Scuttle has been constipated for the past couple days, and this has led to currently 2 vet visits, possibly one more tomorrow morning. So that's fun. We think he's been getting into my dad's trash because we've been telling my dad to throw stuff that has like cheese and stuff in the big trash can in the other room, but he doesn't listen. So we think the cat has been getting into my dad's trash and eating cheese. And for anyone who doesn't know, cats are typically lactose intolerant, so cheese can cause them to become very constipated.
Yeah, like it's either or. Like either you get constipation or diarrhea. I had a cat who had the diarrhea reaction.
Yeah. So that's been fun dealing with a cat who, is so full he can't really eat, and like at the point where trying to give him food can cause him to throw up levels of constipated, so
that's not good.
Yeah. So hopefully he uses the litter box tonight and sister doesn't need to take him to the vet again. And then, as far as gaming goes for me, I did pick up Helldivers 2 last week, and We Love Katamari Reroll. Because Katamari's fun, yo. I do need to find some people to play Helldivers with, because the game does not have a very good solo experience.
I mean, it shouldn't be hard to find people.
Yeah, it's more finding people who are already like I'm friends with, you know.
If I recall correctly, I have the first Helldivers, but that is a completely different game.
Yes. But yeah, hopefully I can get more into Helldivers sometime and, find times to play it because life is hard.
I mean, time to convince Ogre to buy Helldivers too, I guess.
He needs a computer upgrade before that to happen because his computer is way too old.
Naka's right out because when you broadcast, that's about his bedtime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway.
And yeah, I guess that's it for me. So next victim.
Well, Gallix, that'd be you.
I was quite sick this past weekend, but I'm better now.
Did you get turned into a newt?
No.
That's the
But yeah,
next
I wasn't able to hang out with my friend and had to miss Pathfinder. Well, enough people weren't there that it got canceled anyway, so that's
Good.
I don't know. It's good to not miss out on stuff, I guess. Weather's been a little bit. I'm not looking forward to daylight savings.
Oh fuck, that is coming up, isn't it?
Oh God.
Arizona, we're the only state that doesn't observe it.
I know we kind of hate that sometimes because
except in parts of our we have a coworker in Arizona and it gets things mixed up.
It messes up my calendars for sure.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
But yeah, not looking forward to that. Yeah, don't have too much else going. Oh, there was the Digimon Double Typhoon starter deck pre-release thing I went to yesterday, and I brought a Turbotmon deck and came in like 4th out of like 9, which is not terrible. Not terrible for me.
That's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm building.
I don't get a chance to play Constructed very often. So.
Yeah.
It was an all exclusively green decks.
Yeah.
Format, so that significantly limits some options, and I didn't want to just bring a flower deck or a Terriermon deck, since those are like what I figured most people would be doing. But there was some variety. There was a green Leomon deck. There was a Duftmon / Leopardmon and Deva's deck. So.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's about what I got.
Okay, that means it's my go. Let's see. I, too, have been getting over some exhaustion since, if you recall, last week I mentioned that there was going to be some spring cleaning, and indeed there was. That took a couple of days, and it took longer than what was expected. So, that's why the reviews got pushed to Monday this week. It's amazing how stuff can pile up very, maybe not quickly, but profoundly in spaces you don't think of as too big. But, it's just so much stuff. But thankfully, the task at hand has been largely completed. There's still a few things to give away, or I think those were earmarked for the local antique store. Point is, it's most the big work has been done. So that means it's onward to the next challenge. And something that's going to have an effect on the program. I think I mentioned this previously, but next week is the big week in terms of my brother and his family, because next week is the time period where he has to be out of his current apartment. So that means his kids are going to be around a lot more next week. And that's probably going to bleed into the regular recordings. We are going to have to figure out how that's going to work. So, fun times ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
If there are more streams with me and Ogre, you know why, friends.
well, no, I still intend to have the regular recordings. Like, it's just a lot of it has to hinge on their space being ready.
Fair.
You know, that's that's been the grand plan, and we'll see how that shapes up.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be all in order by Sunday night. Like, not sure if that means another Monday. Like I said, a lot of shit's just up in the air right now, especially this upcoming week. So I can't make any definitive statements on anything right now. Wish I could, but and I know this is a burden on the team here. It's like, believe me, it's not been a picnic here either. Like, so, it's like there are three very energetic children. So,
to have youth.
Yeah, tell me about it. Like, all of the running and the screaming and the hands. Like, believe me, it's gotten better now that they're, most of the kids, two of the kids are older. Like, the youngest is still, like, he's not quite 5, but he's just a couple weeks out. It's going to be his birthday this month as well, so I have that to look forward to. Anyway, in terms of video games, picked up a whole bunch of stuff here and past week, including the first two. Well, not the first two. As far as I know, there's only 2. The Surge. It's one of the many Soulsborns that are out in the world now. Also, Zorch, which is not a thing that's actually attached to Chex Quest, even though that is a term from that particular title. I've heard good things about it. It was only $5. A little bit more with another game called Chop Shop. Let's see, I picked up 3 Mountain Blade games. Zapper, 1 Wicked Cricket. I also picked up Wheel Heart Katamari, since that was on sale and missing from my library. So, just a whole bunch of stuff. In terms of playing, still playing Tales of Symphonia. Been playing also the Star Wars The Complete Saga, which is
the Lego one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Legos. Yeah. It's one of the older Lego Star Wars games, which I actually prefer. I'm one of the ones who liked the Lego games more when they didn't have the voice acting. I know your taste will vary. Try to introduce my oldest nephew to it. It kind of confounds him. I mean, I blame it on him not understanding what gaming with a controller is. Like, he has gotten better at Among Us, so that's something. Like, I did download Chex Quest HD, though I'm afraid that mouse and keyboard might be advanced trigonometry at this point. Like, anyway, so that's my news for the week. So, merrily, we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us on the program once again is John Gamester81 Lester of Collectervision Games.
Hey guys, good to be back. Thank you for having me.
Indeed. It's been about 3-4 years since we had you on the program. If I'm remembering correctly, we talked a lot about Sydney Hunter back then.
Yeah, he's our mascot, so to speak, for Collectervision Games.
But you returned to us with a entirely new game. Though I suppose that would be my first question in regards to Dead Tomb here. Does it have anything to do with the Sydney Hunter series?
Great question. Totally unrelated to Sydney Hunter.
Okay, not surprising because it doesn't say Sydney Hunter and the Dead Tomb on it.
Right.
But it didn't necessarily preclude like a universe spin-off thing. At any rate, so before we dig into the details, why don't you tell the folks at home what Dead Tomb is?
Yeah, Dead Tomb is a classic style point-and-click adventure game for the NES. Originally built for the NES, of course, recently it came out for Xbox and Switch, coming out on Steam eventually soon as well. And so for those who like the classic Sierra games like King's Quest and Space Quest, games like that, or even the classic LucasArts games, point-and-click ones, Day of the Tentacle, things like that, this is definitely a game for you. It's taking place in a futuristic kind of Egyptian-themed, almost like a Stargate themed, think of it like that. And you land on this pyramid. You got kind of go to time warp, time travel, and you get stranded, kind of like Planet of the Apes, where you get, he gets down on a spaceship and it lands in a different part of time and space, and so you're trying to find these parts of your ship to escape. So you have to find different rooms and different areas. It's based on a classic game called Temporal Inc. That came out only for console, and I've drawn a blank on the name of the console. It only came out in Quebec, Canada, parts of Canada in the late 80s, early 90s. So it's kind of a game lost in time.
I mean, yeah, that's really obscure. We're talking about something that was relegated to the Francophone sphere of Canada.
Right.
And
the Video Wave, it was called, let me see, hold on, it was called, the Video Wave is the name of the system. So it was like a system that, kind of like the Sega channel, where you actually connect online and download games, and it was really popular in Canada. I've obviously never made it down to the States, but it's cool to bring this game back, and it's a fun, beautiful graphics, really fun from music by Ben Allen, and it's one of those games that's challenging, kind of unique to play. Not many games like it for the NES.
Indeed. I do remember a few adventure games for the NES, like most prominently when I was growing up, the Mac Venture ports. But I also remember Maniac Mansion being there.
Yeah, I think King Quest was also for the NES.
King's Quest V did make an appearance there. The less said about that, the better.
You got to move the sand.
the sand has been moved.
Yeah, do it again. There you go.
That's some adventure game logic right there.
Yeah, there's a bunch of times in the game where you actually have to do some things like multiple times, kind of tricky. But once you get used to it, and there's a whole bunch of adjectives like action words that you can taste and close and move and use. Kind of go through each one, kind of check out, see which works.
Yeah, that's vintage LucasArts right there. Yep. I mean, they're the ones that use the verb table. Anyway, though, in terms of NES adventure games, the one that this reminds me the most of is a game called Tombs and Treasure. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one.
I can't say I've ever played it, to be honest.
Like, it's an interesting game. Like, first of all, it's a completely original adventure game that was made for the NES by Infocom, if I'm remembering correctly, and it takes place not in Egypt but in the Mayan basin.
Very cool.
So, you still get pyramids, but you get the ziggurat South American pyramids instead.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so to clarify things, the original incarnation of Dead Tomb is an actual NES game, right?
Yes, it's been ported to the NES. We did a limited run release about a year ago or two, and then we're working with Retro 8-Bit Legit, and they're doing a special edition, more limited kind of printing of it too. So yeah, the game, what we're seeing here, can be played on the NES as well. We also own a system. We have a system called the Phoenix, which is the Collectervision Phoenix, which is kind of like a ColecoVision, but a little more advanced. And this game's imported on that system as well. Same graphics and style that you're seeing here as well.
Does
so
that
go to the wall, go to the hole, and use.
I thought I tried that, but I didn't want to go
to the other, to the right.
I guess I was one of those 1 pixel off type things.
Go to the right. Other right.
There is a bit of a delay for watching on the stream.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's not exactly real time, but regardless. So, what was the impetus for the desire to make a classic style point and click game for the NES?
Well, my two business partners, Toby and JF, great guys, they grew up in Montreal, and so they're very familiar with the VideoWay system, and they want to bring some of these games back because they're kind of lost in time. So this is one that's very nostalgic to them. They knew that's kind of a unique game. There's not many games for the NES that are kind of like this style, classic point and click kind of game. So they want to bring it back.
Like, interesting, certainly an interesting desire.
Yeah.
It's like, granted, the difficulty in making a adventure game for the NES is the imprecision of it all.
Right.
I'm like, because there's no way getting around it. It's like you're using a D-pad to control the cursor and everything, and that has so much less precision than a mouse. Like, so I'm wondering, how much of a concern was that in the development of this game?
To be honest, I wasn't in that discussion when it came to that decision, but I think that's one of the reasons why you have all those verbs in the D-pad. You can kind of choose your action. So I think the game actually controls fairly nice using the D-pad.
Right.
There's actually a mini game within the game as well called Runner. It's kind of an Easter egg that we've added in the game. Someplace there's a hidden Game Boy, for example, and so it's like a hidden Game Boy game within this game. So I don't want to give any spoilers of where you find that, but you have to play and see if you can hunt it down. It's in the game for sure.
Maybe my colleague will stumble upon it during the interview.
Maybe.
So it remains to be seen. But at any rate, so how difficult was it to get this game into an NES cartridge?
Like anything else, you got to be careful. You're restrained from just the amount of colors you can use and the graphic capability and things like that. But JF did a lot of the pixel work. We have a guy named Eric did a great job with all the pixel art too. The cutscene you just saw there, walking in the tomb. So initially those were moving, like you actually see them moving, but with the limitations of the NES, we had to cut that out and just do a still image. But there were some things that we certainly want to add, but this is a limitation with hardware that's 40 years old going now, almost.
Right.
It's a little challenging.
Not to mention that, depending on what you're aiming for, the NES is a lot more limited than people maybe realize.
Sure.
I suppose a bit of background for those who might not be that knowledgeable about the architecture about the NES. Basically, the NES was, family computer, born in 1983, and if you want to know what the ultimate game you can make on stock NES hardware, Super Mario Brothers. Like, anything after that was done with the either the assistance of the Famicom Disk System or the memory mapper chips, which is basically a co-processor in the game that allowed for much more fancy effects. And Dead Tomb here looks like it was something that was programmed with the MMC3 chip. It looks like something that came out in, say, 1991.
Yeah, I mean, graphically it looks pretty good, pretty bright colors.
Mm-hmm.
Visually looks pretty good.
Yeah, especially the large blow up things. I'm like, there is a way to get that to move, because I remember Double Dribble doing it.
Right. Yeah, I know you're exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, like it's just you have to do the singular frame pace thing. Forget like if it's got a formal name, but if you've seen it, you know what it is. Like, anyway, so in terms of forgiveness, well, I suppose that's a good demonstration of what I'm aiming for. Like, how death prone is our protagonist here?
Well, what's interesting, what's kind of unique about Dead Tomb, there aren't really many enemies per se. There's obviously ways to die, it's just a scorpion attack you, but you don't really encounter like enemies in the sense that they're going to come out and battle you, right? It's not that style of game. So usually when you die, you drink the wrong poison, or you get stung by a scorpion, or obviously it reboots you at the same screen. Initially, when we were developing this game, you had to start over from scratch, and we had like a little code system, right? And I think there still is like a code system in as well, but if you want to continue, you turn it off and you can put the code in. But the game is pretty forgiving, though. There's unlimited lives. It's not like you have 3 lives and it's over.
That makes sense. I suppose more focused. There's no way to get locked, is there?
What do you mean locked?
Okay, like certain Sierra
It's a game
games.
similar to it's a game similar to Sierra games. Many of those had ways within the first very short part of the game to make the game overall completely unwinnable that you wouldn't even find out about until much later.
Right.
Oh, hello, King's Quest V.
Sorry, you can't defeat the semifinal boss because you didn't pick up the bottle of pills in your bedroom before leaving the house. Or for Maniac Mansion purposes, oops, the random collection of 3 people that you chose to enter the mansion isn't a combination that it's possible to finish the game with that we didn't tell you anything about. Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's not like that. It's not like that, right? I mean, there is some backtracking, but not to that extent where you're going to feel like cheaped out and like, wow, how am I supposed to know that? It's pretty linear in the sense that, you kind of know what to get.
I'm sure some people are nostalgic for adventure games that are difficult in that kind of way, but yeah. I don't know what's wrong with those people.
Oh, God. I hated that back in the day. I still hate it now. Like, it's like, not just the dickish moves, but also the not necessarily moon logic. Going back to King's Quest V, for example, in order to defeat the Yeti that you encounter various way in the game, you have to use the custard pie. On the surface, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you wouldn't think to use a pie on a Yeti. But here's the thing. It makes sense in the context of the logic being used, in that it's a comedy pratfall. It's a vaudeville routine.
Yeah, it's not, like I said, this game, we keep comparing to King's Quest. It's similar in the sense that it's kind of an adventure game, I guess, but it's not like the game. You're not going to get to the point in this game where if you don't have an item, you're going to get stuck.
Right.
You're going to know pretty much what item you need for that particular situation. Now, if you move, there's a scorpion there. Did you take the antidote?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
That's
so you
good
got the
to
rock.
know.
Okay, so you got the rock, so that's what you need. So now you need to use that rock for something else later in the game.
And I suppose along those lines, are there any sort of maze-like areas?
No, not really. I mean, there's like a over map, which you saw, the pyramid itself, that you can move room to room. But there isn't really like a maze where if you make the wrong corner or turn, you're going to get lost.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I know that's another staple of adventure games from this time. Looking at you, Uninvited. Oof. That was painful.
What happened? I didn't see it. That's frozen on my stream.
No, I was talking about a different game.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you've ever played The Uninvited.
I've not.
Yeah. That has a particularly thorny maze segment. NES version is better because it doesn't have the time limit. But anyway, so are all the verbs here useful?
At some point in the game, they are. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Because I remember that being another, something that LucasArts game eventually struggled with. Not to mention Sierra games. I suppose it depended on the Sierra game. Like Space Quest made better use of that kind of thing than King's Quest. Space Quest had fun with the taste verb.
Mm-hmm.
And
they had the humor, and so did Leisure Suit Larry and all that. They had the humor.
Right. Yeah. I suppose that does bring another question to mind. Is this a humorous game, or is it completely, serious, straight-laced?
I wouldn't say there's too much humor in the game, to be honest. I mean, pretty much straight-laced.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, granted, people might look at this game and think it might be a bit on the comedic side, but that's just kind of how NES games are built.
Right.
I'm being honest. It's
so go back. I'll give you a tip. Go back to the other room. Previous room you were in.
The one with the body in the electric thing?
I think so, yes.
I think I'm here.
Okay, I gotta look for something. There's something like shiny and blinky kind of thing. You have to look for it.
Oh.
Yeah, it is delayed, the stream, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of how not necessarily how Twitch works.
Right.
Anyway, so how long would you say Dead Tomb would take in order to complete?
I can beat it in 5 minutes because I know all the moves. So there's that. But if you don't know all the moves, you could spend several hours playing it or more.
I mean, that is fair enough. That is a lot of adventure games. Once you know all the tricks, it's rather easy to get done in half an hour or whatever. I remember having King's Quest 6 pretty down pat.
Yeah, I think it takes me about 10 to 15 minutes to beat it from start to finish, just knowing all the moves. So it's not quite 5 minutes, but it takes me because I know all the moves, right? And I get everything. But if you didn't know what you're doing, like first time playthrough, it took me probably several hours to beat it.
Mm. Good to know. And how long did it take to bring this game to the NES?
Spent about a year and a half, really developing it and programming it, and then also testing it. So about a year and a half to 2 years.
See, I'm not sure if that's a long development cycle. Like,
We have a pretty small team. We have one programmer, one audio guy, a couple beta testers, right? So it's pretty small. And we have other tasks that we have to do in life too. So it wasn't like it was our full-time development, right? But yeah, it took about a year and a half to 2 years.
right. Like, granted, that development team is larger than some of the other NES programmers we've had on the program. You
Right.
know, like a complete solo dev.
Right.
Anyway, so what was the reception to Dead Tomb like?
It's been positive. I think a lot of the reviews I've been seeing, it's been positive reviews, which is great. I've only seen much negative on it, to be honest with you. Some games, adventure games aren't their cup of tea, right? So it is what it is, right? But this game isn't made for those gamers, so to speak, right? Those are, this is for those who appreciate a game that you can really dive into, and it's a lot of puzzle elements. And to be honest, it's very rewarding once you do figure it out. It's you get a sense of like completion and like, wow, I figured that out, and this is cool. That's kind of like an escape room. I don't know if you guys ever done an escape room or not before, but that challenge of being in an escape room with a bunch of friends and trying to figure out what things to do to unlock this certain thing and that. And if you ever solve the escape room, that kind of joy and that, excitement of completing it, it's very similar to this.
Yeah. I mean, as it so happens, I think 8-Bit Legit published a game called Nescape.
Yeah, it's a fun game. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, and we had the creator of that on our programming.
That's a fun game.
Know what you're talking about. Like, anyway, so I'm presuming that the limited run print was successful.
It was sold out. Yeah, it was successful.
Like, and was it a singular print run?
It was, and that's why we're teaming up with 8-Bit Legit to do another round. Different box cup, different artwork, so it's different.
I mean, that makes sense. And I suppose it does worth venturing. Are the not the packaging, but like the package between the NES and the modern console is going to be different in terms of like bonus materials?
No, they're pretty similar. I mean, obviously the modern platforms, you're playing this on the Switch, I presume, right? So you get the borders, right? You don't get that on the NES, so that's different, right? The controls are different playing on it, a Switch or Xbox opposed to playing on a D-pad NES controller, but graphically it's the same.
That makes sense because it's an NES game, and it's gonna still look like an NES game outside. Yep. I mean, I've encountered other such projects like this, like that Garbage Pail NES game comes to mind.
Right.
Now, is there any differences in terms of like what's going to be in the actual package, or rather, were there any special bonuses in the original limited run like they like to do?
The original limited run had stickers, it had a map, it had the cartridge manual. To my knowledge, I think the one we're doing 8-Bit Legit is going to just be manual and game, cart, sleeve, but I don't think there's going to be any map or stickers.
And is there going to be a physical edition in both the Switch and Xbox?
No plans yet.
not a surprise, especially the Xbox.
Right.
From what I've been hearing from people I know in the scene, let's say, the demand for physical goods on Xbox is just absolutely cratered. So
Yeah, well, they stopped supporting physical, didn't they? Xbox.
not completely, but they have reduced it a fair amount. A good example is Hi-Fi Rush is getting a print run from Limited Run Games rather than Microsoft. And that's probably what's going to happen going forward in terms of the physical releases that Microsoft deems unworthy, so to speak. If there's going to be a physical edition of Hellblade 2, it's probably going to be from Limited Run or 8-Bit Legit or Super Rare Games, one of the boutique publishers out there. And it is a sad thing to see, but it's also kind of the nature of the business, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so have the Switch and Xbox versions of Dead Tomb come out already?
Have the question one more time? Sorry, have the Xbox versions come out digitally?
Yeah. Have the Switch and Xbox versions? Are they out now?
Yeah. They came out early. Actually, no, it'd been like late January, mid-January. So they've been out.
Okay. And how have they been faring on their respective platforms?
Pretty good. Yeah, pretty pleased with the sales. So it's hard to release games now because it kind of lost in the shuffle, So it's just a matter of just press and letting people know. So that's why I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it on your guys' show. So thank you.
No doubt. I mean, in all honesty, I do think your game has a bit of an edge, if only because there's not many of this kind of game out there. There's a lot of, let's say, retro tributes to side-scrolling platformers, both 8 and 16 bits. There's not a lot of people who angle towards adventure games, especially, console adventure games. We've certainly encountered people who are very into doing throwbacks to completely PC style adventure games. Not something that was built for the NES. So, you've got a thing that stands out from the crowd. And any advantage you can get in the digital shops of today is good, I would say.
Right.
Anyway, so what's the current status on the Steam version?
That's a great question. I need to follow up with Tim on that. I think it's probably, I'm assuming later this year. I don't know exact dates, to be honest. So I'll follow up with 8-Bit Legit.
Okay. And can you go into why that version's kind of in limbo right now?
That I don't know, to be honest.
Curious. It could just be a matter of resources.
Probably.
Because, once again, you're a small team, and, I'm actually kind of amazed you guys put out 2 versions at once. Know a fair amount of indies who would focus, on one version at a time because of the resource demand. At any rate, any plans on a PlayStation version?
Great question. That I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm assuming so at some point. I don't know when.
Duly noted. And let me see here. So, I suppose another question I have is, I believe this game is under the Acclaim label.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering how you managed to acquire that legacy, let's say.
We several years ago, I'd say 7-8 years ago or more, we actually Collectervision. When I say we acquired the Acclaim name trademark on a federal level, right? So it doesn't mean we can't. It doesn't give us the we can't produce new old, like we don't have the IPs for the old Acclaim games, right? So we can't just release NBA Jam, but we can do new titles under the Acclaim label since we now own that.
Yeah, most of the old Acclaim stuff is with Throwback Entertainment or Night Dive, some other places like that might be unknown.
Right.
Yeah. And like, was there a particular reason to grab the Acclaim name, or was it just kind of available?
It was available, and we're just nostalgic for the name, right? I mean, they produced some great titles in that day, and kind of true to who we are at Collectervision, bringing new life to classic consoles, these new games. We just felt it was appropriate to grab the name and use it and select a few titles that we wanted. And we did the same thing for the title Exidy. I don't know if you know that company or name or not, but they produced some classic arcade games back in the day. So we did the same thing with them. Yep.
I mean, do you just own the Exidy name, or do you own the games as well?
Just the name.
Okay. Honestly, it's kind of weird that the Exidy library hasn't resurfaced, given the popularity of unearthing retro games for the modern age.
Right.
But yeah, and I will also grant that you have taken a, let's say, controversial stance on Acclaim, because, there is no way to sugarcoat it. A lot of, let's say, talk has been made about the quality of Acclaim games from back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think of that like when I think of JLN, right? I mean, certainly. I mean, the Acclaim, I can't really, you got some great games like NBA Jam they poured over. They did a lot of, classic games. There are few Acclaim games back in the day that I thought I would consider like terrible games. LGN, yes. Acclaim, not so much. I think a lot of people, at least from my age, have pretty fond memory of Acclaim games.
Possibly. Well, first of all, it gets blurry with Acclaim and LGN because after, if I'm remembering, 1989, they become the same company.
Yeah.
And make no mistake, Acclaim had their fair share of stinkers. I'm looking at you, Simpsons games.
You didn't like the Simpsons games?
No. I cannot say I did. No, I remember having a lot of difficulty with Space Mutants. And
I love that game.
To each their own, I suppose, but I remember being very frustrated as a child playing that game. But, once again, people have their stances. We had a discussion about, playing. I'm trying to remember if they did Friday the 13th or
that was LJN, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Nightmare on Elm Street. I think, I'm trying to remember if those were LJN or Acclaim. Once again, those two get conflated a lot, and not without cause. After a certain date and time, LJN literally becomes Acclaim. They bought LJN in order to get around Nintendo's stupid contracts. The one that said you could only have 5 games a year.
Acclaim they ported over Mortal Kombat. They ported over NBA Jam.
Yep. I know people. There are people who will dispute those because those are Midway games. But it's a conversation that has a lot of nuance to it. Let's say.
Sure, Turok.
Yeah, Turok. That was probably the peak of their release. The N64 era. unfortunately, like the PlayStation 2 days were not really all that good.
Sure.
It's like I can't say Turok Evolution was all that good. Like I played that, really rough compared to the Turok N64 games.
Right.
Anyway, so do you have any other NES projects in the works right now?
We are working on a game called Jester, which is also from a game from the Video Way. It's a puzzle, not a puzzle. It's like a map game, like Pac-Man, right? Kind of that vein. And that's
game.
Yeah, it's a maze game. Yeah. And that's going to come out. Working with Mega Cat Studios on that. So it's coming out for the NES and Super Nintendo. Working on another City Hunter game called Caverns of Death for the NES. It's been in development for quite a while. Hope to have that out later this year as well.
So it sounds like you are keeping busy.
We are indeed.
And I think I've run through my gamut of questions. I'll see if my colleagues here have anything further for you.
I think I'm good.
Awesome. Alex? Must have stepped away. Anyway, so John, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule and being with us here today.
Of course. Of course. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and it's always good to catch up with you guys. Appreciate being on again, and thank you very much for having me.
No problem. Maybe we'll have you on again when, say, Jester and the new Sydney Hunter game are ready to be talked about.
Sounds good. Have a good rest of the evening, guys. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Anyway, in the meantime, the game is Dead Tomb. You can pick it up on the Nintendo eShop and the Xbox Store for $4.99 USD. So be sure to pick it up today. Petty, play us to the next segment.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
All right, welcome to the topic of discussion. And I suppose this week's kind of a fitting topic for what we got to talk about. Because we're going to be talking about emulation, an emulator. Specifically, we're going to be talking about Yuzu.
Yep.
Now, I'll grant Yuzu is not a thing that has come up in our discussions before, but to be honest, it's not a thing that really needed to be discussed until very recently.
Yeah. It's like I knew it existed, but I also have a Nintendo Switch. So
yeah. So if you're not up on the latest happenings, I suppose a quick primer is in order. And the long and short of it is Nintendo is acting like Nintendo. There's no other way to put it. Nintendo has been suing the creators of Yuzu. I'm trying to remember their name.
Or also the makers of Citra, which is a 3DS emulator, I believe.
Team Yuzu and Tropic Haze LLC. This is not a surprise if you know anything about Nintendo.
To be fair, it's not even like Nintendo is doing this for fun there are actual potential legal penalties of not defending your things.
Right. And this is a stance that Nintendo's been pretty consistent about. If anything, they've loosened up because that back some time ago, they stated that all emulation was piracy.
Yeah, even if you can, or rather, even if they can't always enforce it, they don't like you using their stuff in ways that they didn't intend it to be used.
Yeah, And Nintendo's hated, emulators like this since the 90s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
and it has been like legally precedented that emulation is legal.
Yeah.
But
well, and this is kind of where
it's Yuzu didn't go into a huge amount of they settled very quickly out of court, which signifies, and yeah, it's been pretty well confirmed, I think, from what people saw, that they did in fact have some stuff that they were not supposed to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are allegations that they had actual Nintendo code, and they were charging people to use it, which
They were advertising like first day compatibility with things, which the way of getting that is through piracy generally.
Yeah.
And they had some patches that were only available on their Patreon.
Now, I do want to make clear that commercial emulators are perfectly legal. This goes all the way back to Sony versus Bleem. Like, if you don't remember Bleem, like, the original incarnation of that, like, Bleem is back. That is a label of Pico Interactive, whose games appear on the show every now and again. But Bleem was a PlayStation emulator that you could use on the Dreamcast. And it was specifically used in conjunction with games like Gran Turismo 2, Metal Gear Solid, and Tekken 3. Yeah. And Sony was absolutely pissed off that this existed. They took Bleem to court twice.
Yep.
And the thing is, Bleem actually won.
Right, because they were what's called clean room developed. They don't have any of Sony's code in them.
And the only reason Bleem had to tap out was because of legal fees. And it's suspected that this is another big reason why Team Yuzu tapped out very quickly, because
Nintendo is big enough they could bury them in legal.
Yes. I'm like, and even though they were taking a significant amount of cheddar per month, it is still massively expensive to fight a lawsuit. Like, especially when, Team Yuzu is definitely the little guy here. Nintendo is a massive corporation with massive resources. Now, it's like, but I'll also note, it's not like Yuzu is also not a moral imperative either. I know people want to frame it that way, especially with what happened to Citra. Like, it shared the same fate. It's like, Nintendo doesn't care about availability. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah. Looking at the hundreds of games we lost when the Wii U and 3DS eShop shut down.
Hell, fucking WiiWare.
Yeah.
Some of those games are still lost to the ether unless you pirate it. It's like, and yes, I fully agree that piracy is preservation, but it's also, gray market at best, people.
Yeah, our general stance as lost, if you can get it legally, get it legally. But if it doesn't exist in legal channels, yar har har, har the open seas.
Like, especially if it's, like, a good example, the Rebirth series that was released on WiiWare back in the day. You can't get that anywhere legally. Konami has never seen fit to re-release it. Like, it's not the first stupid decision that Konami has ever made.
It won't be the last, looking at some of their recent shit. Oh, God.
But, having a Nintendo Switch emulator, that, you shouldn't be surprised that Nintendo is looking to quash that shit.
Yeah, and they're marketing it as a better Switch, basically.
Yeah. Once again, I will patently agree that Nintendo's damages claims in the lawsuit were fucking ridiculous. Like, that doesn't mean that they were in the wrong.
Right.
Especially legally speaking.
Especially if the allegations that they use Nintendo code in their emulator are true.
Yeah, because, the law is not about fucking moral imperatives. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah, I am painfully aware of that every fucking day.
So, you can pack that shit right up. Like, that being said, it's a pretty cut and dried situation in terms of what's going to happen, or what has happened. That is total capitulation to Nintendo. The development on the Yuzu emulator has ceased.
Their GitHub has been dumped. All official mirror repositories are gone.
Yep. And all materials will be transferred to Nintendo, including the domain name.
Yep. Like, when we were in the writing room Monday, they were in the process of transferring the domain over, and I think it has been finalized as of... It was either yesterday or this morning that they got all that squared away, I think.
Yep. And, I'm just reading the notation that Team Yuzu left on the website. And it's definitely something that Nintendo forced them to write out.
Oh yeah, that was definitely one of those things from legal. Because
they are apologizing very profusely about all the piracy they caused. And and I suppose they have 2.3 million reasons to be apologetic. Yeah. They are also discontinuing their Patreon. Discord's going down. Basically, I'm not even sure if they're going to be. They're absolutely not going to be allowed to talk about this outside.
Yeah, there's an actual gag order in place on that.
Well, they settled.
Yeah.
So, terms of settlement are sealed, typically. Now, as far as is this going to be the death of Yuzu and indeed Citra? No.
In the capacity as it is now, quote unquote, yes. But if you think that people haven't already grabbed the source code and have made forks of it, you are very misguided.
Yeah. Once something is on the internet, it never goes away. I mean, generally.
You just have to maybe dig for it.
Yeah. Yuzu, the emulator itself, will live on.
Yeah,
under probably a new name. And will probably be a lot more underground if they're still using the Nintendo code in it.
Now, this does mean that downloading Yuzu gets riskier.
Mm-hmm.
Because, instead of going to a trusted site like, say, GitHub, where, it's not going to download a virus to your computer.
Or at least less likely. It's been vetted and whatnot by the devs themselves.
Yeah. Like, you're going to have to go to, let's say, uptodown.com.
God, that's a name I haven't heard in a long-ass time.
Well, it's the first result I get for Yuzu download. So, yeah, thankfully there are better archive places to download Yuzu from.
Mm-hmm.
Hint, it's up on the Internet Archive.
Yeah. I would suggest, if you really want it, grab it now, because there's a very good chance Nintendo may have that pulled.
Yep. But, it's like, and it being the Internet Archive, they've got all sorts of ways to download. Direct, you can torrent. They got a fucking WinZip file. And no, you probably still haven't paid for WinZip.
You mean WinRAR?
They're different.
Yeah, they're technically different, but I know WinRAR, ended up supplanting WinZip.
Mm-hmm.
WinZip was one of the old ones. WinZip is back from before Zip was supported in most operating system type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember using WinZip in say 1999. Point is, you wouldn't actually use WinZip, you'd use WinRAR. Even using WinRAR these days is fairly rare.
Yeah, you mostly need it. Well, whatever. There are still some compression things that you still require specific programs to.
Oh, I'm not saying it's extinct. I said rare. Anyway, yeah. Point is, the emulator will live on, just in the underground.
Mm-hmm.
It lives in the same space that AM2R lives.
Right.
So, do not worry too much about it. All right. Anyway, so I think that's about it for this topic of discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And indeed, that's about it for this week's episode. So, coming up on the week ahead, we do have a new episode of MSP planned for today. In terms of Max showing up, I suppose it depends on how achy he feels today.
Mm.
Our last message from him was he's apparently taken some home repairs into his own hands. Specifically painting walls or 3/4 of a wall, because he's
that kind of person.
Well, he's in his upper 40s. He's got a lot of damage to his body, and he's feeling the effects of all that.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully he doesn't oversleep this week, which is a distinct possibility. Just throwing that out there in the here and now. Anyway, regardless, we will have a new MSP episode with a guest. In fact, they are pinging me on Discord. I'll get to that when I can.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, no Friday show this week. And on the Sunday reviews, the Sunday is a bit loose this week. And once again, got to bear with the family. Anyway, coming up, we have reviews planned for Meat Puppet. Looking up, I see only a ceiling, Graveyard Girls, and Tiger Heli. So, until next time, I shall wish you good gaming.